And that means that at this point, there's a recording with this
Okay.
presentation. So how long have you been working with Minifabric?
Since January.
Mm.
More Tongli, that's weird. I don't know. Okay, because I forward this link to quite a few people. Probably when they join, their name becomes Tongli.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Actually, people have to join as attendees and not so they need to register. Your
Oh,
panelist link.
okay. That probably is the reason. Yeah.
Well,
I send them the link, and then they become me.
let's see this. Are you getting a request to start sharing a video now?
Nope. No.
Okay. Whoever Tong Li was, I just moved that person to become a participant.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. As you can see, this is the right place if you're looking for a webinar about Minifabric. This is the right place. We'll be starting shortly. I hope you're all having a good day for now. I'm seeing various participants from various places. And Tong, you've been working on cello?
Yes. Yeah, worked on cello for quite some time.
And why did you move? Is cello done, or you just wanted to take a stab at another project?
Yeah, I think I put a lot of time on Minifabric, and I think Minifabric helps people a lot. It has very small requirement. It can get people started very fast.
Right.
Well, we'll talk about that in the presentation shortly.
And where are you? You're in Japan?
No, in North America, North Carolina, actually.
Ah, I wonder why I was sure that somehow. Is there a team in Japan developing Minifabric?
There might be some contributors from Japan, but
Yeah, for some reason I had it in my head that most development is being done there.
no, it's mostly here, actually, in US.
In your office.
All right.
Okay, well, we have 16 participants, which is not bad for early September. So let me start sharing my screen and we can get started. Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Marta Guido-Pikarska and I'm Director of Ecosystem for Hyperledger. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting a webinar with one of the maintainers and people standing behind Minifabric, which is our latest lab. So Tong Li will be talking about the Minifabric, its introduction to Minifabric, and how to use it. Before we start, I would like to do a couple of housekeeping rules. First of all, this meeting is held under antitrust policy. It means that you should not be sharing anything that could be considered an intellectual property by your company. If we want more insights to antitrust policy that is used by the Linux Foundation, please use the QR code in the bottom left to go to the link that describes it. This meeting is being recorded. So again, take that into consideration when asking questions or speaking up. The slides will be available to download, as well as this recording will be available to view on our YouTube channel and under our webinars website on hyperledger.org. Now, if you would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A button. If you'd like to raise your hand and speak up, I can unmute you so that you can get into more interactive state with us. And if you would like to use the chat channel, use it for interacting with other participants and asking, just don't use the Q&A button, don't use it instead of Q&A. So use it only to chat to people. And with that, Tong, I'm happy to hand over to you. Please welcome everyone. Tong Lee about Minifabric.
Thank you so much, Marta. So, okay, let me start sharing my screen. I'm gonna stop your sharing. Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, of course.
All right, thank you. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. How about now?
A Hyperledger Minifabric.
Okay, that's great. So welcome everybody. My name is Tong. I work for IBM for many years. I started the Minifabric project earlier this year based on the problems I have seen in the past. I've been working on Fabric for longer than that. But when I talk to customers and users who are interested in Fabric, the first problem they always face is how to actually set up a Fabric network so they can play with. There are some tools available, but many of those tools, even play with the tools, it's pretty hard. So set up Fabric and get their Chaincode or their applications running, it's always a challenge. Because of this reason, I started this Minifabric project. So I would like the people who are interested in Fabric be able to just start experience Fabric very easily without a lot of hurdles, without spend tons of time how to actually get it up running. So I wanted the Minifabric to be able to help the user do the Fabric the easy and the right way. So the major functions of Minifabric you can see on the screen allows you to quickly deploy a Fabric network and allow you to very easily create channels, join peers to channels, update the channel configuration, and also you can easily install your Chaincode. A lot of Fabric users, their main focus is not to truly understand how Fabric actually was developed or even designed. They just want to use it to serve their business needs. So their focus is the Chaincode or their application. So how do you actually say, hey, I have a need, I want to develop Chaincode. How do I use Fabric to run my Chaincode? So Minifabric actually can help you go through this process very quickly. Once you get a little bit knowledge about Fabric, now you dive into the policies, the organizations, how endorsements actually work. With the Minifabric, you can do all this relatively easily compared to the official document or other tools. Minifabric does not stop there. Minifabric actually, once you set up the network, it also automatically create a lot of artifacts. For example, connection profiles, wallets. Those things actually help you to develop applications because when you want to run your application, you actually need, the very first thing you need to do is to connect your application with the peer node or older node, how to actually send your transaction request to those nodes. You need a connection profile, right? With those things generated for you, you can look at those connection profiles and figure out actually what are necessary for your application to do work with Fabric network. Okay, so Minifabric actually produce those things without even you knowing. It will lay out those things for you, and you just need to know where to look. Okay, first introduction and a quick start. So Minifabric is a tool to help Fabric developers or Fabric network admins to learn and manage Fabric network and its artifacts, right? Minifabric is an open source project, currently lives on GitHub. You can see the URL, repository URL. Since I started this project, I have made the project very faithful to Fabric itself. You can see that every change anybody makes or contribute to Minifabric get tested automatically, use Microsoft Azure pipelines. And currently we set up to do the test against Fabric release 1.4.1, 3 1.4 releases, and basically all releases of 2.0. So every time you put up a pull request, then we actually will run this automatically. If it fails in any one of the release, the Docker container that's how Minifabric is delivered to users won't be created on Docker Hub. So when you actually run Minifabric, you're sure that Minifabric is always the successful build you're getting, right? If it fails, it won't build the Docker container on Docker Hub, okay? So that is really convenient for the users, and you don't have to doubt a lot, say, hey, does this actually work, right? Minifabric repository has this page. I call the home page. If you just hit the repository URL, you will see the quick start document. You can take very few steps to actually get yourself started. So Minifabric actually runs on all available operating systems currently. It runs on Linux, either it's Ubuntu or CentOS or Fedora, it will work for you, even on Windows or OS X. The only thing you need for any of those systems you might have is the Docker environment. It does not even require Docker Compose. Okay, so if you have questions, please go ahead and ask. I always like the presentation to be interactive, so it's not just me keep talking. Okay, some highlight about Minifabric. I mentioned a few of those already. You can also tear down the Fabric you start up very easily. Minifabric was packaged as container, give you a lot of good benefit. For example, when you actually pull down Minifabric or download Minifabric, you're not polluting your operating system. regardless you use Windows or use Linux. All you get by downloading Minifabric is one small script. It's about 10 lines of bash script for Linux, a little longer script, batch script for Windows, and one basically container which you download from Docker Hub. The only thing you need to download is the script. The script will actually automatically download the container. The reason we did that is allow you to remove everything very cleanly, right? Your system is not polluted. You can, when you set up a Fabric network, you can use just one command to do that. And you can use another command to say, hey, Minifabric cleanup. So everything set up will be cleared up. There's no trace even left behind. I mentioned that you can create channel, join peers to channel, install Chaincode, also approve, commit, and instantiate the Chaincode. And as I mentioned, Minifabric support Fabric release start from 1.4. So if you have worked with Fabric a little while, you probably know the life cycle of Chaincode has changed from 1.4 to 2.0. So if you're still working with 1.4 Chaincode, then you know you just need to install and then instantiate. But for the new life cycle, you need install, approve, commit. In some cases, you might also need to run initialize. But Minifabric support all of those, regardless you work with Fabric 1.4 or 2.x. And it works for all releases. Not only that, once your Chaincode is installed, regardless you're trying to use the Chaincode come with Minifabric, or you have your own Chaincode, you can invoke those Chaincode with the parameter that's specific to the Chaincode. Minifabric was developed not to tie with a particular Chaincode, so this is very generic. You can also query blocks, the transactions, because normally when you are application developer, you're writing Chaincode and your applications. You want to try if your application does what you expect it to do. So let's say you invoke transaction. You want to see if things actually happening on the ledger, right? What is the best way to verify that? Is to query the blocks currently on your ledger and to see what the ledger actually records, right? So you can use one simple command, and I will introduce that later on, to see the blocks and all the transactions included in the block, not only the latest block, but also from the Genesis block. You can query every block. You can specify a parameter, simply do that. And you can do channel configuration change, right? So one of the most difficult thing to understand Fabric is how the channel is configured, right? How can you see all the parameters that channel configuration use that you can actually go in change, right? So with channel configuration query, signing, and update, and you can do all these things, right? Minifabric also support private data collection. You can use Minifabric actually bring in new organizations even. And that's one, thing for Fabric, stops many people. A lot of people ask questions. Yeah, great. Let me set up a Fabric network for 2 orgs, 4 peers. Awesome. How do I add new organizations to, right? Minifabric actually made that process a lot easier. If you look at the formal or official document, you probably have to go through, I don't know, 15, 20 steps to bring one organization into your Fabric network. Minifabric actually made that process a lot easier. A lot of people feel like Minifabric, because it's called the Minifabric, it probably just Fabric setup on one physical machine or virtual machine, but that's not the case. Minifabric can get you started if you have very small physical machine, but you can use Minifabric to set up more organizations or peers on multiple machines, then eventually bring those peers and the organization into the Fabric network you started, right? You can experience all this, and especially when you do want to learn how to expand your Fabric network. I mentioned that you can create connection and wallet files for Fabric. The one thing I want to mention here is that the wallet files that Fabric use have been changed from 1.4 to 2.0. Minifabric actually understands that based on the Fabric release you are using, it will create different, will create the right format wallet files for you.
So maybe this is a good moment to ask a question. We have a question here, if it's possible to use Minifabric in production.
The answer is yes.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So here, I just want to show you how to get a Minifabric. You can see on the screen that it really just one line. This one line of script is available on the repository homepage. Just copy paste that. And you have Minifabric on your system. Once you have this one command run successfully, because this just basically create one directory, and go into the directory and download that little piece of script, and just use the tiny URL. Then change the mode of the script. Then you can run it. Okay. So there's just one line to get the Minifabric available on your system. I normally recommend to put that script in the execution path. Then you don't have to keep doing the /minifab. You just can simply say minifab. Okay, once you have Minifabric script downloaded, then to bring up a Fabric network which is running, have the default Chaincode installed and all that kind of stuff, all you have to do is just say minifab up. That's it, right? So this process probably will take like 3 to 4 minutes based on your network speed. If you have a reasonable, good internet connection, it should take you less than 4 minutes to get things up running. You can see the process is really simple. There isn't much of a configuration or change or anything you have to do. So there's very little chance you make a mistake in this process, okay? So now, because you didn't do any configuration, you're wondering, yeah, great, I have my Fabric network up running, so what do I have? Right? You can see from the lower left-hand side, this is the YAML file, actually. I call this YAML file network specification, right? So this is the default network specification Minifabric use, which give you 2 CE nodes and 4 peer nodes and 3 older nodes, right? You can see that those peers, orders, they are in different organizations. So just a little bit of naming convention here is that you can see the first part of this dot notation is the node name, right? For example, if you look at the peer1.org0.example.com, actually the first part is peer1, that's your node name. Then the rest of those dot notation gives you organization name. So in this case, the organization name will be org0.example.com, right? This is just the default network specification file. But if you don't like the default specification that come with Minifabric, you can certainly create your own. Of course, you can copy paste from the default and then make your own. In this, on this slide, I give you 3 examples. Like the first example, basically say, hey, I don't want any peer organization. I just want to set up orders, right? So in this case, there's just 5 order nodes. They have different organization name. I just made this up. The point is that you can create your own, whatever the preference you might have. You just need to use the dot notation, right? It's like a DNS name, right? That's the first one, just set up order nodes. The second one you can see is just set up like one organization with 3 peer nodes. Okay, the third one, I showed this example mainly because in the past people have been asking me, hey, how do I do the solo fabric network? Because the solo is one of the term it was used when Fabric was 1.4x release, that you can just set up one order node just to develop or whatever. It seems a lot easier. But if you want to do that with Minifabric, that's fairly easy. Just create a network spec file, just like this, 6 lines, just to have one order node, and whatever number of peer node you want, and put in the peer. And they can be in the same, well, actually, in this example, 2 peers, they're in a different organizations. Of course, you can make them in one organization, that's fine. Okay, so this just tells you if you do want to set up Fabric network the way you want it, you can easily create a file. You have to name that file spec.yaml and place that file in the working directory where you actually run all your command. Okay, so and we talked about how you customize the network spec. Let's say you have your Fabric network up running, regardless, you use the default or your own spec, and you can use Minifab down, Minifab clean up, and restart to actually, clean up everything you just set up, or say, hey, I want to shut down my machine. I do a Minifab down. Now, after I reboot my machine, I'm going to do Minifab restart. So all the Fabric node, peer node, order node, even include the Chaincode containers, will be restarted. Okay, you start from where you stopped it. Okay, so that's what those command for. And you probably say, hey, I do not want to use the latest Fabric release. I want to use a specific Fabric release. To do that is also very easy. You don't have to change the spec file because the spec file does not allow you to specify a release of Fabric. So you do that actually from command line. So the benefit of doing that is you can have exactly the same spec file, but just when you bring up the Fabric network, you can specify a release, and suddenly you have different release of a Fabric network. So to do that is really, really easy. Whatever the Fabric release available, you just simply specify that, use the -i flag. Okay, so if you are not sure what command Minifabric supports, it's very easy. You just need to simply run minifab -h, or just simply type in minifab. It will default to -h and show you all available commands. Okay, so channels. I mentioned that you can create channels and.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I want to jump in with some questions because we are having a vibrant discussion here on the Q&A. So first of all, the question is how to deploy Fabric network on multi-machines or multi-servers. And then another one was how to debug in the sample you were just referring to. So let's start with those two and then we'll go to other ones.
Right. Okay. And so that's more actually advanced there, the features of Minifabric. So the first one is how to deploy, use Minifabric deploy onto multiple servers, right? Is that the first question?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, great. So actually doing that is very easy. First, you deploy your small Fabric network. Let's say I just want to deploy 3 older nodes to start with. Okay, so you deploy these 3 older nodes, 3 older containers. Let's just say we start with that. Okay, on one machine. It can start up, be running very quickly, right? Then you can actually deploy, using Minifabric, deploy a peer org, peer nodes on second machine. Okay, and you can repeat this step many times for new organizations or for organizations with new peer nodes. Okay, once these nodes all running on different servers, then you can join those new organizations into the Fabric network you set up on the first node. Okay. Once you bring the new organization into the first node, I consider first node is like a starting Fabric network, right? Once the new organizations are part of your consortium, right, then you can bring the peers belong to those organizations into various channels. Okay, so that's how you actually expand your Fabric network. Okay, so the second question was, how do I debug? Okay, now debug, this is rather broad question. Debug, the question might be, how do I debug actually Minifabric itself? All right, so you run some command and you get a result that's not what you expected. And you checked Fabric and said, it looks like Fabric itself is working fine. And I suspect the error is in Minifabric, right? How do I do that? Well, actually, it's quite easy. Minifabric just recently added another flag called -f, which actually uses sort of like a flag, like debugging level, right? you can use that flag to produce tons of extra information and shows you what Minifabric actually is doing. Let's say deploy, install Chaincode, right? It will show you how Minifabric actually instruct the node to do things, right? You can use that flag -f to specify login level. Now, instead of see the green line say, hey, what the Minifabric is doing, you will see a lot of output, right? That's the way how you actually debug Minifabric. Now they say, how do I debug the fabric itself? Yes, you can. When you set up fabric network, in the spec, remember the spec file that I mentioned earlier, you can actually specify debug level. Default is actually debug, right? You can see all the node, peer order node, actually set up with the debug login level. And you can see all the information produced by the peer node, right? You can just simply say docker log, specify a peer node. You will see all the logs output. That's for the fabric node, right? Now for the Chaincode, when Minifabric actually deploy Chaincode, it will always use the debug level flag that you set for peer. So if your Chaincode actually was developed, using a login mechanism, you will see those log statement from a Chaincode containers. Okay, right. So I just talk about 3 different ways that you can debug the stuff, but all of those can be controlled by using flags that you feed Minifabric. Okay, so I hope I answered those questions. Is there any other question that we can answer at this point?
Well, loads. Can you use it with Kubernetes?
No. Minifabric was developed specifically target Docker environment. So it gets you started. Now, I guess the question is, can I use Minifabric, deploy Fabric onto Kubernetes? The answer is no. I was in the process thinking adding those features to Minifabric, but that feature is kind of on the discussion right now. But I don't see why we can't, right? Minifabric is a tool. I use Ansible script to do all those things. Certainly we can add that if we have a great need and contributions.
Great, thank you. Let's proceed with the presentation and then we can come back to the rest of the questions.
Okay, great. Okay, I just continue want to see when you do trying to do channels, you can say create to join, channel query. Channel query will actually produce the channel configuration JSON file. You will be able to see every piece of configuration that your channel has. Right? If you want to make changes to that, you can go ahead and change the JSON file that produced by channel query. Then you can do channel sign and channel update. Whatever you change there, if the change is correct, then will be made into the channel. Okay. And we recently added some great feature that you can combine Hyperledger Explorer with the Fabric network you set up. To do that is extremely easy. You just need to do Minifab Explore up. Then you suddenly have Explorer hooked up with your Fabric network. That the command will actually give you one URL that you can type in, you can copy paste that URL to a browser, then you will be able to see Explorer and show all the blocks transactions. And actually, let's do that. So, all right. So I just want to show you this. I mentioned that Minifabric can run on machines big and small. Normally, when I do my development, you can see I have Oracle VirtualBox running. I just have 3 machines. Only one is started. I call that machine Minifab. So this is running on VirtualBox. If I look at the settings, you can see the system only has 4 gig of memory, and the storage, I believe, is only, oh, not this one. It's only 20 gig, right? So, I mean, by today's standard, this is really a small machine. It's just running on my MacBook, okay? So this is a VirtualBox. So actually, this is just a terminal. I connect to this machine. You can see that I don't have any Docker container running, but I do have quite a few images. So you can see I have Minifabric already on this machine, and a lot of the images. And those images actually all pulled down from Docker Hub. You can see they're all official Hyperledger Docker images, Explorer and Caliper and those sort of things. The good thing is that you don't have to remember this, and you don't even have to download or pull down those Docker images before you start Minifabric. Minifabric will download those things for you accordingly. If you use Fabric 1.4, it will actually pull down the 1.4 release container images, right? So, let's get started here. So what I want to do, actually, I do not want to use the default chaincode. I want to use a chaincode. I want to use a chaincode called sample CC. Okay, so I want to bring up the Fabric network, use the default spec, but I do not want to use the default chaincode, which actually is called a simple chaincode or the AB store chaincode. But I want to use the sample CC chaincode. So by the way, both simple and sample CC chaincode come with the Minifabric. It's packaged already there. So I'll start this process, and this will take a while. Normally it takes less than 4 minutes on my machine. But if you have not pulled down the image yet, or this is the very first time you run on a new machine, it may take a little bit longer, but it should not take more than like 6-7 minutes, okay? So this will take a little bit of time. Let me switch back to the presentation, then we can continue the presentation, then we switch back. Okay, so we actually stopped here. You can, I said we can start Explorer, and if you don't want to Explorer running anymore, then you can say Minifab Explorer down. So that Explorer will be removed. Okay, so there's one actually quite important concept from Minifabric that you saw those commands are very, very easy. It's just Minifab, then one basically verb. So how can Minifabric actually do this? The secret actually is called Minifabric execution context. Every time you run a command, whatever you specified will be remembered. So for example, Fabric release. So by default, Fabric, when you use Minifabric setup Fabric network, it will use 2.2.0, right? So this actually is saved in what I call execution context. Also, the channel name, you probably ask, okay, what channel, when you do a Minifab up, what channel will it create? So actually is called my channel, right? Not very creative, but this is a default, right? If you want to change that, just say, hey, I don't like the channel name called my channel. So you can simply specify the name, use -c, whatever the channel name you want, then it will remember the name in the context. Okay, so when you actually set up Peter, you know that Fabric support 2 different types of database. One is Go level, one is CoachDB. So you can actually specify what database you want to use as well. But all those parameters has a default value. So the default value, you actually can see the default value from the repository. If you don't like any of those default value, then go ahead, specify that on the command line flag, then it will remember that. Okay, one other thing I want to point out is that the working directory. The working directory is where you actually run Minifabric command. So that directory is really, really important because otherwise it will not be able to find where the execution context is saved, where the certificates were created and saved, all that kind of stuff, right? So you need to keep your working directory consistent. You cannot just go from one place to the other, run all different commands, then it will just really mess up things, all right? But the good thing is that Minifabric actually only use one subdirectory under your working directory to save things. So it keeps your working directory relatively clean. The only thing you normally should have in the working directory is just one network spec file, okay? Okay, now Chaincode. So let me track the time. So we have 15 minutes left. So Chaincode, one of the very big focus for Minifabric is that to make the Chaincode install, proof, upgrade, invocation, all that process extremely easy, right? So actually I will show you how this is done. So to deal with any Chaincode, right? You just need to first put the Chaincode in the right place. So this is an example I show. I want to show you that under your working directory, you should have a verse file and the Chaincode directory already created when you bring up the Fabric network. So if let's say you have a new Chaincode here, in this case, it's just called mycc, right? You can name that anything you want, but that directory becomes your Chaincode name. This is how Minifabric actually locate the Chaincode, right? Then you can create the directory with name as your Chaincode name. Then you can put different language implementations of the Chaincode on the different subdirectory. For example, here in this example, we have a Go, we have a Node, right? So if the Chaincode called mycc is written in Golang, then you put the program there. If it's written in Node, you put it in this directory, right? With that, then you can move on to install the Chaincode. Basically just say minifab install and then give a Chaincode name. Remember the earlier I used -n, say sample cc. It's exactly the same thing, right? In this case, it's called mycc. Then you can do a proof, commit, then you can also do discover, all that kind of stuff. Eventually you can do invoke. And once you invoke a Chaincode method, you want to see if the transaction actually really made to the ledger, then you can do Minifab block query. Okay, so you probably find, you're keep doing Minifab install or commit, and just when you do the Chaincode upgrade, and you're probably tired of doing that. And Minifabric actually allows you to combine the command all together. Here, they give you example, say, hey, I have a Chaincode named as sample CC. I just want to do install, approve, commit, initialization all together, right? So you can actually combine all those commands in one command, right? Then this is really convenient for upgrading a Chaincode, right? Let's say you are in a developing mode. You keep changing your Chaincode to make the effect quickly. Then you simply just do this one command, but they give a version number, right? Because when you upgrade, actually you want to upgrade to a new version, and you need to specify that. To do that, it would be just -v flag. Okay. All right. So I think we have about 10 minutes left.
5 questions, so I would like to leave some time for that as well.
Yes. Okay. So now let me stop there. So remember earlier, I started this process, right? Remember this name, this command, right? I specifically wanted to install sample CC there. So this command actually finished successfully, right? It says the real time is 3 minutes, 20 seconds. So every Minifabric command that you run, at the end, it will always tell you how long it takes to finish that, right? So this is the same thing. So it takes less than, 4 minutes. So now the Fabric network actually is up running. So what I can do, if I want to just check the status, I can run Minifab stats. Right, so this takes 4 seconds to complete, but the output actually tells you, remember I installed sample CC. I asked Minifabric to install sample CC. So this one command not only set up the Fabric network, but also create channel, install Chaincode, and commit, approve, all that stuff, right? Join the peers to the channel. So it shows you that the Chaincode container is up running. Well, it's already up running for 6 minutes because we keep talking, right? All other nodes, like older CA nodes, peer nodes, right? And it also tells you the health of this node. By the way, Fabric actually had this feature that you can enable the health check. So Minifabric by default always enable that port. So you can check. Actually, you can even query the measures, right? That's more advanced. That we can talk about that in another video or presentation, right? But here it shows all the peer node, older nodes run perfectly. Okay. So now we know we have channels created and Chaincode installed. Let's actually start up Explorer. It will take a few seconds to have that started. Now, the Explorer actually started. So now I want to actually copy this because this is this virtual machine, it's just a server. I don't have browser installed. I just, have Fabric network running on this machine. So I'm gonna access this Explorer from my Mac. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. So this is actually the URL, the command tells me. Okay, so, well, because I logged in before, so you cache the credentials. I think it should just, well, anyway. So you can see that the Explorer actually is up running. So it shows currently, this is one Chaincode. The Chaincode is called sample CC in my channel. Transaction. Okay, by the way, this is really the Explorer function. I just want to show you, you can easily hook up Explorer with the Fabric that you set up. All right, so I'm gonna minimize this a little bit. Now I want to actually invoke the Chaincode. So to do that, I'll just say invoke. Invoke is the Minifabric command. Then I just need to give the invocation parameters, okay? So the command or the method name for the Chaincode is invoke, right? So now there needed to be another verb called the put, then whatever the key here, whatever value. By the way, sample CC is really just a simple Chaincode. It takes a verb, say, hey, do you want to do put or do you want to do a get? And you give a key, it will use the key and write the value and you provide onto the ledger. So that's why the command here, the parameter here actually takes 4 basically parameters, says invoke, put, whatever key, because this is something I made up. But you cannot, just made up anything here for the first 2 parameters because that's how the Chaincode dictates, right? So the Chaincode says invoke and put. Well, anyway, so this is just one invocation. So let's try that. Okay, so this tells me it takes for a second to complete the whole thing. And the result says, okay, now this is just one transaction. Let's go back to that. You can see now Explorer actually shows, oh, okay, yeah, there is one actually transaction, one block, okay? So that's what the Explorer shows. But if I don't have Explorer, so I can simply do block query. Right, now this actually command also complete, and it tells you that the newest block is here. Okay, let me simply just do that. Read the content. Okay. Minifabric said, okay, the result is saved here. Now, when I see this file, this actually reflects what is in the last block. You can see the block hash, date hash, right? The previous hash. Okay, those are the very important information for a blockchain application developer, right? So now it shows this block contains only one transaction. Notice transaction, this is a list, right? It contains only one element. Here it just gives the arguments. Remember when I invoke, I said whatever key and whatever value, right? The Chaincode ID is sample CC, okay? So you can certainly do that as well, all right? So what else here? Yep, I think I want to stop here, leave a few minutes to answer questions.
Wonderful.
Marta,
So
we
let's,
have 5 minutes left.
well, we are on the top of the hour, but I hope that
Ooh,
for
sorry.
the benefit of people here, you can answer the questions and the recording will be available as well.
Okay.
So is Minifabric capable of doing all the work of Fabric?
Minifabric is a tool to set up Fabric network. Whatever, when you set up Fabric network, it possesses whatever the functions that release has, you know. So, you know, I would say yes. I mean, when you set up Fabric network, it's a Fabric network.
Right. And used in supply chain use cases.
Is that an application question?
I'm guessing that was the question, was if it's in supply chain use cases, can it be used? Which I'm assuming is yes, it can be used in any use case. It's a tool.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you design your, I guess, your application. I'm not super familiar with the supply chain application. I don't know what is required. I mean, obviously, if you require some kind of token to have your supply chain on blockchain network, currently Fabric does not support tokens. So I would say no. But
just to to make sure that we answer all the questions, Behalf Papa is saying that he would like to develop a web application which would join new peers on some on-click events. And can Minifabric help him with that? He has searched in Fabric files and it had some ports for each peer.
Yeah, yep, certainly. I mean, you would just have to make sure somehow you call, I assume you have all necessary configurations, right? Regardless it's, certificate or it's endpoint or whatever you might have, right? You can certainly provide those things in the format that Minifabric can recognize. Then you can just call the join peer, or basically it's a join command. So that peer should be join. It's a join command, then that peer should be part of your channel. Right. Before you do that, you actually need to bring the organizations into the channel first. But you get the idea. I mean, there's join the peer into a channel. It's I mean, a few steps. You have to make sure it's part of the channel first, and then you can join the peer.
So I think that the final question, because that will then answer all the other questions, is there a developer community for Minifabric? The person asking Vijay is quite new to blockchain and Hyperledger, so he doesn't want to clutter the GitHub repository with my beginner questions. So Tong, in general, there are still 6 questions left. Where should people go to get them answered?
Okay, the community, yes, definitely. You can see the contributors, right? So far we have 95 stars for this project, relatively small. But once the plan is to make Minifabric a formal project under Hyperledger, just like Hyperledger, let's say Explorer or Hyperledger, I don't know, Caliper. We are in the process to make that happen. So you can imagine once that happens, you have more people contributing, more people using, right? So I don't see other questions. Hold on, let me see.
But I think we should finish here, and I will thank you everyone for joining this webinar. We have a running series of webinars, so basically every first and third Wednesday of the month, we always have a webinar. So please go to hyperledger.org/events to learn more, and I am looking forward to seeing you on the next call. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you,
Yep.
Tong.
Yeah, you can always find me from the Rocket channel, Rocket chat channel. So we have Minifab channel, and I'm very active on that channel. So you can always ask questions there.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.